didn't understand them, so I'd go around to these various people and say, what does this mean? And then they'd explain, there's this attack, and this set of words is supposed to stop this attack. And it was kind of fun. I'd go to 3 different people, and they'd give me 3 different stories about what these words were for. And so I figured, well, okay, the truth's in the middle somewhere. They made this ambiguous on purpose. So they listed the countermeasures: trusted distribution, trusted recovery. When I read that one really carefully, I went into Marv and I said, what this says is that when the computer loses its tiny mind, it will come up secure. If it lost its mind, how does it know? And he explained the attack. Now, this is very good in distilling what happened over 20 years. Oh, Lord. No, I've still got some time. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to do things in a timely fashion. If it takes 20 years to deal with something new, then you're going to be way behind the curve. And little did we know that at the time it was published, things were speeding up. Networks were coming online and becoming more important. Databases were becoming more important, and design cycles were getting quicker. So this became a problem. This is my wife's favorite. We knew how to build the very best computers. The computers that made this ranking have never been broken into. None of them have ever had a security patch. But practically speaking, you cannot have a policy for people who want to sell to the DoD that we won't buy it unless you have made this top level called A1. You needed a growth path. So what the Orange Book did was to show A1 and then attenuate in a graceful way back to commercial systems. My wife refers to this as an exercise in partial credit. So that's really good. That's commercial practice. Commercial practice is Windows and trusted Solaris. And those are the ones right now that are supposed to be protecting the dikes. Okay, so even though we changed the modeling kit as we went, and we had the network problem, I think I've already said that. Not going to go through this. Other things came up, and I would look in the toolkit and say, sometimes I would say, we have all the tools we need. Other times I'd say, not quite. Need to add something, little bits and pieces. But rather than throwing something out of the toolkit, what we kept doing was refining or sharpening. Now, what does one do if one's an evaluator and you don't know how to deal with networks? And it's 1983. People bring you products that have networking characteristics, and they want you to evaluate it. You can evaluate not knowing what you're doing, or you can say, we don't know how to do that, we're not going to do it. Okay, well, the prudent thing is the second. Don't do it. Unfortunately, networks were not going away. So, what do? Well, in that case, we'll just make them isolated. Everything on the left is single level, trusted, top secret. Everything on the right, secret. The difficulty is that there are operational reasons they need to be connected, at least a little. Now, when people put their isolated networks up, sometimes they neglected to put that little line in. And if they did, it was kind of a little tiny faint line, but it really should be highlighted. And the reason is something, this is something that everybody knew, but when I finally wrote it down, Roger Shell said, glad you said that because people are just not paying attention. I call it the Computer Security Intermediate Value Theorem. We've got two spots, A and B, that are at a security level, alpha and beta, and they're different. What this says is you run any path from alpha to beta, A to B, you will hit one node that is multi-level in the sense of processing information of more than one security level. Okay? Proof is easy. It's a sketch. Suppose false. Mathematician in me comes out. Suppose false. What that means is that every node is single level. So whatever it gets, it hands out. Okay, so A hands out alpha, alpha, alpha. Next one, alpha, alpha. When it finally gets, it doesn't matter what path you take, when you finally get there, B gets an alpha, but we said alpha is not beta. So what that means is no matter how you go, somewhere there's a multi-level node. So let's go back to our min security. Everything on the left is top secret single level. Everything on the right is secret single level. Our theorem says some place has got to be multi-level. Where can it be? It's in the middle. So we have isolated networks, we hook them together, but we know how to put really strong computers in these places. So all we have to do is put really strong computers in those places, but unfortunately, these are the ones we've got. Now, if you are looking for a target, if you're the bad guy and looking for a target, oops, we just lost all of our lights, and you wanted to get from secret to top secret, where would you aim? Right at the dike in the middle. 21st century challenges. The NSA Computer Security Center is not acting as an effective champion anymore for strong commercial operating systems. They are not performing their selfless acts of security. And the hard-won accomplishments, we had 3 products that came out on the very top, and no one would use them. And now NSA will not ramp them and update their evaluation. Government is competing with industry with sandbox systems that they are unwilling to subject to the marketplace of ideas. And recently they have been issuing guidance that says the only thing you're allowed to do is one of our sandbox systems. This talks about robustness, but separation kernel bothers me more. So what can we do? We have to tell ourselves the truth, that there is a problem, and the people who tell us we're safe and secure, either they are unaware that we're not safe and secure, so we don't want to listen to them, or they know when they're telling us we're safe and secure and they're lying to us. Not many good choices there. And wherever we can, we should be making use of what's there, because it won't be there forever. And I'm almost to the point that I'm afraid it's gone. If you go to the website and punch these buttons, you find my answer. For the last 15 years, I've heard people say these statements, usually in a place where I couldn't jump up and disagree. But I have disagreements on the website. Okay, my standard ending. You have told us everything that's wrong, so what would you do, smart guy? Well, reference implementations, I say. If you were doing something, I should have changed Yahoo to Facebook. Update this. If you are trying to let people get off to files or off to the web or to databases, and you're doing it the Yahoo, Facebook kind of way, you know how to do that. There are problems, you know, the other kinds of problems, but from that kind of security, we don't have to do that. If you attach your, to 2 things where one's top secret and one's secret, it's a totally different ballgame. It is not just more of the same functionality. But we have known for 20 years how to build that box in the middle to do secure databases and file storage, and it's easy enough to do webs. What needs to be done, I have said over and over again, and once or twice I've had people say, I think I've got the money for this. Somebody needs to go off and build these and demonstrate them. The only hard part of this is compiling Oracle to run on a small box. Dumb compiler tricks are the only hard part. The cost of a source license is significant, but if the government bought it once, the government could use examples anywhere. We need a selfless act of security. Now, I've heard some mention of U.S. visit. I haven't heard, I don't know the details recently, but I talked to the ISSO, I think was the terminology, in 2003, just as U.S. visit was coming up. This is the visitor immigration system that keeps track of everybody. He came over to me, he was introduced to me, and we were talking, and he said, you know, this is what I need to do in U.S. visit, and what I need is something that's at least B2. And our security people looked around and said, you don't have many choices. The general idea is that there are intelligence groups, law enforcement, visa offices in Cairo and places like that, customs people, and various public sources who have information. And people at these various places need to have access to some of that information. Not all of it, but some of it. So what you'd like is a nice set of equipment that you could put places, configure for your individual location, that would enable people to put things into the database if that's their job, and retrieve stuff from databases if that's their job. And for a passport officer, for example, to check to see if there's any reason to deny a visa, and if there's not, to issue the visa, and then record the visa was issued, so that other people could look at it, like customs. So this is sort of one site. So you need to put files over here. You need a database, might or might not have to be multi-level. In the aggregate, it is. You need to be able to read up, so things down below you, you can suck it in. You have to have a limited way of providing stuff out when it's your function and your job to put stuff out. Do web, file stuff. We know how to do all of that. Somebody needs to build it and then say, you need this kind of thing? Do it. It isn't so hard. I always said that if my retirement nest egg was bigger, I could fund it. But then I'd have to go to work. That's it. Questions? Bob Courtney. That's it. I tried last night to go searching for it, and I forgot after I got to the back, but it's Bob Courtney. IBM was going around saying this notion of technical security is just a mirage. The only thing you have to do is make sure you have good people.
Courtney's laws actually make sense, but that part of what he used to say is off.
Yep.
But the rest of the other half of what he said really is valuable.
Yeah. Well, at the time I first observed him talking and stuff like that, I was at the Computer Security Center, so I was looking at it through blinders.
So I'll ask, there are two systems I know of that are out there that are fairly highly rated. One is Rogers' sort of redone GemSauce system. He hasn't been able to get a lot of traction on getting people to adopt that. And the other is the Green Hills Integrity System that's been evaluated at a high level. It's a very compact system. Any comments on either of those?
I knew a little bit about the Green Hills when they were first starting up, or when they were getting rolling in 2004. I'm not current on it beyond that.